USA, canned rattlesnake, Texas, and Arizona. In the American Southwest, snack time takes a deadly turn. Canned rattlesnake might sound like a novelty, but it has a long history. During the Great Depression, cowboys and settlers had to survive with whatever they could hunt. Snakes, abundant and free, became an essential protein source. Today, these canned snakes are sold mostly as souvenirs or as a tough guy snack. But it's not just scary because of its history. Every bite is filled with hundreds of tiny, needle-sharp ribs. Doctors warn that swallowing one carelessly could puncture your throat or stomach. And if you think that's extreme, consider the annual rattlesnake roundups in Texas and Arizona, where thousands of snakes are captured, killed, and sold for profit. To some locals, it's a proud tradition. To outsiders, it's a metallic-tasting nightmare wrapped in danger. United Kingdom. Travel across the Atlantic to London and you'll find another shocker: jellied eels. This dish originated in Victorian times in London's East End. The River Thames was so polluted that only eels survived, and the city's poorest relied on them as a cheap and available food source. The process is simple but unusual. Eels are chopped, boiled in a spiced stock, then cooled until the liquid sets into a thick, gray, gelatinous jelly. Eating it is a sensory challenge. The cold, slimy texture is enough to make newcomers gag. Yet generations of Londoners grew up with this dish, and it's legally protected as a traditional specialty. Today, pie and mash shops still serve it, a testament to resilience and history in every wobbly bite. Canada. Now head to the frozen Arctic regions of Canada, where vegetation is scarce and survival requires creativity. Enter Muktuk, raw whale skin and thick blubber from bowhead or beluga whales. Served frozen and often eaten raw, it might look like an alien food to outsiders. The skin is rubbery, oily, and intensely salty. For the Inuit, this food was vital, especially as the only natural source of vitamin C to prevent scurvy in the harsh Arctic environment. Today, Muktuk is controversial. International anti-whaling laws and rising ocean pollution mean this ancient survival food is under scrutiny. Scientists warn that whale fat may contain mercury and PCBs, making it a toxic delicacy if consumed today. But for centuries, it was life itself, rich, energy-dense, and culturally significant. Italy. Italy introduces perhaps the most dangerous cheese in the world, Casu Marzu. This Sardinian pecorino is intentionally infested with thousands of live maggots. The larvae digest the cheese's fats, making it incredibly soft and creamy, almost liquefied in parts. European authorities banned Casu Marzu because the maggots can survive the human stomach, leading to a medical condition called intestinal myiasis. Despite the danger, locals believe it's a potent aphrodisiac and a symbol of Sardinian tradition. Eating it is not just a meal, it's a challenge. The maggots can jump up to 6 inches when disturbed, so diners often cover their eyes and brace themselves. Casu Marzu is a perfect example of how food can be both cultural heritage and terrifyingly extreme. Vietnam. In Southeast Asia, Vietnam offers Tiet, a soup that will shock many. Unlike anything in Western cuisine, this dish is made with raw, chilled duck or pig blood. The blood is mixed with fish sauce to prevent it from clotting too early, then allowed to set like red jello. It is garnished with crushed peanuts and fresh mint. For locals, Tiet is more than food. It's a source of energy, believed to bring strength and good luck. But authorities warn about the health risks. Swine streptococcus, bird flu, and other bacteria make it a risky choice. Yet, for centuries, Vietnamese people have eaten it for breakfast, a tradition that blends culture, survival, and shock factor in a single bowl. Philippines. Finally, we land in the Philippines, where culinary courage reaches its peak with balut. Balut is a fertilized duck egg, incubated for 14 to 21 days. Inside, a partially developed embryo, complete with a soft beak, bones, and feathers, awaits the eater. The traditional way to eat it? Crack the shell, sip the warm amniotic fluid as a broth, then consume the entire bird. Introduced by Chinese traders centuries ago, balut became a staple for workers needing a high-protein snack. Today, it's a cultural icon, a street food delicacy, and for outsiders, the ultimate test of bravery. Few foods provoke the same mix of fascination and horror as balut. Japan. In Japan, breakfast can be a real challenge for the unprepared. Imagine waking up to a traditional dish that, at first glance, looks incredibly sticky, stringy, and completely slimy. When you pick it up with chopsticks, thick, spiderweb-like threads of slime stretch out, refusing to break. This polarizing, gooey breakfast is actually called natto, fermented soybeans. The smell is where most foreigners tap out. It is pungent, often described as a mix between strong, aged blue cheese, old gym socks, and a sharp hit of ammonia. Many visitors immediately recoil, calling it the nightmare of soybeans. But how did this bizarre food come to be? Legend says it was discovered by accident almost 1,000 years ago by samurai warriors. While on a campaign, they packed hot-boiled soybeans into straw bags. The body heat of their horses, combined with natural bacteria in the straw, fermented the beans over several days. Desperate for food, the warriors ate the slimy beans and discovered a massive energy boost. For centuries since, natto has been a staple in Japanese households. It's vigorously stirred, sometimes up to 100 times, to increase the stickiness, then eaten with hot rice, soy sauce, and mustard. Historically, it was praised for its incredible health benefits, packed with protein, probiotics, and vitamin K2 for strong bones. Visitors often describe a roller coaster of emotions: visual horror, olfactory disgust, and surprising fascination. Yet, despite the extreme shock factor, natto remains a beloved symbol of Japanese culinary tradition. Sweden. Now, head north to Sweden, where the air itself sometimes warns you of the upcoming food adventure. Surströmming is Baltic herring, fermented for at least 6 months. The smell is so intense that Swedes traditionally open the cans outdoors, and it's often advised not to eat it inside. This extreme dish dates back to times when preserving fish through harsh northern winters was necessary for survival. The fermentation process allowed families to store protein-rich food for months. Eating surströmming is not just about the flavor, it's a social experience. Swedes gather in groups, prepare flatbread, potatoes, onions, and sometimes butter, and carefully assemble their bites. For first-timers, the smell alone can induce gagging. Yet those who brave it often end up marveling at the centuries-old tradition and the surprisingly complex taste. Surströmming is a perfect example of how culture and necessity shape even the most shocking foods in the world. South Korea. Let's travel east to South Korea, where the bustling street food scene is as adventurous as it gets. Amidst the spicy rice cakes, you might catch a waft of something distinctly earthy, nutty, and slightly metallic coming from steaming pots. You approach the vendor and see dark brown, distinctly ribbed, segmented little shapes sold by the cupful. You are looking at Beondegi, steamed or boiled silkworm pupae. For someone unfamiliar, the visual alone is enough to freeze you in your tracks. But the real shock comes from the texture. When you bite into them, the tough outer shell provides a slight crunch, immediately followed by a soft, warm, mushy interior bursting into your mouth. Beondegi has a long, poignant history deeply tied to Korean resilience. During the hard times following the Korean War in the 1950s, protein was incredibly scarce. South Korea had a massive silk manufacturing industry, and the silkworm pupae left over became an essential, dirt-cheap survival food for a starving nation. Today, it is a deeply nostalgic experience for older Koreans and a popular drinking snack paired with soju. Tourists often show exaggerated reactions, eyes wide in terror and severe hesitation, but locals treat it casually, munching them like peanuts. The reaction of foreigners often becomes a show in itself, with street vendors laughing as visitors take their first bite. This mixture of historical shock and dark humor makes Beondegi an unforgettable culinary experience. Iceland. Finally, we land in the freezing landscapes of Iceland, home to a dish that operates on a completely different level of extreme. It has an ammonia-rich smell so incredibly strong that it burns your nostrils like industrial window cleaner, making most foreigners violently gag before they even get close. What's even crazier is that the animal this comes from is highly toxic when eaten fresh, saturated with natural antifreeze that could cause severe sickness or death. Desperate Icelanders centuries ago figured out a bizarre solution to create Hákarl, fermented Greenland shark. The traditional method is wild. They behead the shark, bury the carcass in a shallow grave of sand and gravel, and place heavy stones on top to press the toxic fluids out. After rotting underground for up to 12 weeks, the meat is dug up, cut into strips, and hung in an open-air shack for months until a brown crust forms. Eating Hákarl today is considered the ultimate rite of passage. Served in tiny cubes on toothpicks, the taste is a shocking assault on the senses, a mix of strong blue cheese, old fish, and pure ammonia. Locals traditionally chase it with a harsh shot of Brennivin, a schnapps famously nicknamed the Black Death, just to kill the taste. Visitors often describe it as the most horrible yet unforgettable thing they have ever eaten. For Icelanders, Hákarl is far more than just food. It's a living piece of their ancient history and a hardcore lesson in human resilience. That's a wrap for today's bizarre food adventure. If any of these dishes shocked you, drop a like and let me know in the comments. What is the absolute weirdest traditional food from your country? I read all the comments. If you want more crazy food history, click the video on the screen right now. See you there.